Get ready for the action, because we are kicking things off with massive news. UFC BMF champion Charles Oliveira is dropping some serious hints about a massive return to his home turf. He has teased the promotion's return to Brazil this fall, specifically suggesting an event is planned for Sao Paulo. Oliveira is willing to headline the UFC Brazil card for the second straight year, making this potential homecoming a huge deal for the sport. We dive deep into what this means for the calendar and why this event could be the biggest homecoming in years.
Stop using your finger for notes, sketches, and edits. This Jam Jake stylus pen gives your iPad a smoother, more precise writing feel with palm rejection so your hand can rest naturally on the screen. It charges fast, works for hours, and comes with replacement tips. Perfect for school, work, or creative projects. Check the link in the comments to grab it on Amazon.
Next up, we are talking about a major honor in the UFC world. Former champion Chris Weidman is set to be inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame this summer. Ray Longo has strongly insisted that this 41-year-old All-American is worthy of the spot, and the promotion has reportedly agreed to a modern wing induction. We look at the incredible legacy of Weidman, his reign as middleweight champion, and what this induction means for the history of the organization. Joining Weidman in this major recognition is late UFC writer and editorial director, Thomas Gerbasi. We continue our deep dive into the legacy of Chris Weidman, exploring the details behind his incredible run, his title defenses against Anderson Silva, and the context surrounding his induction into the Hall of Fame. This is a look at the legends shaping the modern MMA landscape. And finally, we bring you the drama from UFC 328. Star Sean Brady has weighed in on the chaotic beef between Khamzat Chimaev and Sean Strickland after their fight. Brady shared his unfiltered thoughts on the surprising sportsmanship shown inside the octagon and what this means for the future of the welterweight division. Don't miss the full breakdown of this intense fight week and what's next in the fight world. Stay tuned for more breaking news. UFC BMF champion Charles Oliveira has signaled a potential return for the promotion to Brazil this fall, with speculation pointing toward an event in Sao Paulo. Speaking on the UFC on Paramount Plus broadcast during UFC 328, Oliveira indicated he has heard plans for a return to Brazil this year and offered his services to headline a UFC Brazil card for a second consecutive year if the opportunity arises. Oliveira mentioned hearing rumors about a potential event in Sao Paulo during August, September, or October, stating he would be willing to step in to fill the card if needed. This would mark the first UFC event on his native soil since October 2023, when he secured a main event victory over Mateusz Gamrot in Rio de Janeiro. The UFC has a long history in Brazil, having visited the country 41 times in total, though recent trips have become less frequent. Oliveira's recent bout at UFC 326 against Max Holloway for the BMF title drew mixed reactions, as fans anticipated a stand-up war but witnessed a ground-and-pound decision victory. Looking ahead, Oliveira remains a top contender in the lightweight division, currently ranked number 3. His potential matchups include the winner of the July UFC 329 bout between Benoit St. Denis and Paddy Pimblett, or potentially Conor McGregor, depending on outcomes. Additionally, Arman Tsarukyan is slated to be a backup for the upcoming lightweight title unification bout at UFC Freedom 250 between Ilia Topuria and Justin Gaethje. Former UFC middleweight champion Chris Weidman is slated for induction into the UFC Hall of Fame this summer, following strong advocacy from striking coach Ray Longo and apparent agreement from the promotion. The announcement was made during the UFC 328 broadcast in New Jersey, marking a modern wing induction for the 41-year-old All-American. Weidman retired from the sport after a stoppage loss to Erky Anders at UFC 310 in late 2024. The induction ceremony for the 2026 UFC Hall of Fame is scheduled for July 9 in Las Vegas. UFC President and CEO Dana White expressed high praise for the fighter, stating, "Chris Weidman is one of the greatest middleweights in UFC history. Chris consistently competed against the best athletes in the world during his career, and his victories over Anderson Silva changed the landscape of the middleweight division forever." It will be an honor to induct him into the UFC Hall of Fame this summer. Weidman established himself as a dominant force in the 185-pound division, capturing the middleweight title from Anderson Silva in the summer of 2013. This period saw Weidman defend his title 3 times, including a rematch against Silva at UFC 168, followed by consecutive wins over Lyoto Machida at UFC 175 and Vitor Belfort at UFC 187. Despite this peak, Weidman's career trajectory shifted, resulting in a 3-8 record and 7 losses by knockout or technical knockout. Former UFC champion Chris Weidman is set to join a group of inductees into the UFC Hall of Fame in July, alongside late UFC writer and editorial director Thomas Gerbasi. The decision follows persistent advocacy, notably from Ray Longo, who championed Weidman's inclusion. The promotion appears to be in agreement with the Sarah Longo striking coach, announcing a modern wing induction for the 41-year-old All-American during the UFC 328 broadcast in New Jersey last weekend. Weidman's career in the 185-pound weight class was marked by significant achievements, including capturing the middleweight title from Anderson Silva in the summer of 2013. This period saw him defend the title 3 times, securing consecutive victories over Lyoto Machida at UFC 175 and Vitor Belfort at UFC 187. However, his trajectory shifted following a stoppage loss to Erky Anders at UFC 310 in late 2024, which marked his retirement from the UFC. Weidman's professional record stands at 16 wins and 8 losses. UFC president and CEO Dana White praised Weidman's legacy, stating, "Chris Weidman is one of the greatest middleweights in UFC history. Chris consistently competed against the best athletes in the world during his career, and his victories over Anderson Silva changed the landscape of the middleweight division forever. It will be an honor to induct him into the UFC Hall of Fame this summer." The 2026 UFC Hall of Fame induction ceremony is scheduled for July 9 in Las Vegas. The induction signals a recognition of Weidman's pivotal role in the sport's history, despite a subsequent decline in his competitive record. UFC 328 witnessed a dramatic shift in atmosphere following the highly anticipated grudge match between Khamzat Chimaev and Sean Strickland. In a 5-round contest, Strickland secured a narrow split decision victory, reclaiming the middleweight title and marking Chimaev's first professional loss in mixed martial arts. The event was characterized by intense pre-fight tension, highlighted by a controversial build-up where Strickland had previously made personal insults regarding Chimaev's religion, family, and masculinity. Despite the friction, the fighters surprisingly began the bout by touching gloves and exchanging pleasantries inside the octagon, a development that left some observers perplexed. Sean Brady, a prominent UFC welterweight contender, expressed his bewilderment over the sudden display of sportsmanship from Chimaev and Strickland. Speaking on the Ariel Helwani show, Brady remarked on the disparity between their public antagonism and their conduct in the cage. "If you're talking about my mom, my children, my religion, I'm fighting you in the parking lot and wherever I see you. It'll be like Peter Griffin and the Rooster in Family Guy. They're always fighting each other," Brady stated regarding the rivals. He further commented on the transition to camaraderie. "You can't talk about people that way and then be all buddy-buddy about it after. I get selling a fight, but there are certain things you just can't say. Once you cross that line, there's no coming back. I'm a fan of Khamzat and Strickland, but when they started dapping each other up in the cage, I was like, you guys just did all that, all the security, all the **** talking for that. It was a good fight, but not what we thought it was going to be. People would have tuned in for that fight regardless. You have to keep that same energy forever." Following the outcome of UFC 328, the trajectory for the combatants has shifted. Chimaev is now planning a move up to light heavyweight, with aspirations for a second title shot. Meanwhile, Sean Brady has recently re-entered the welterweight title picture, following a dominant win over Joaquin Buckley just prior to the main event. The question remains for Brady's next opponent in the competitive welterweight division.